Right, don't know about you, but I thought that was a bumpy ride. Season 10 had been consistently above average, with a pit stop in Average Central for a skirmish with the Daleks, and even though I hadn't wanted to let her go, Jo Grant's departure was actually a high point of the entire series in how it was handled. As a result, I felt like I was watching a show getting its groove back after seasons 8 and 9 had been, to varying degrees, a little bit wobbly. I thoroughly enjoyed Season 10, so to have the Time Warrior and Invasion of the Dinosaurs to open Season 11 with kept these high spirits going before, it all came crashing down as things began to decline. Invasion of the Dinosaurs, despite aesthetic drawbacks, is great, but to then have the 1-2 of Death of the Daleks and the Monster of Peladon only brings with it crushing disappointment, as did finding the opening 2/3 of Planet of the Spiders a bit substandard. I felt sadness that this was how I was seeing out Pertwee, whose Doctor I'd certainly come to appreciate, but it's safe to say, still hadn't fallen emphatically in love with. I wanted to part on better terms. Luckily, the final 2 episodes of that story really picked things up, and while I can't truly claim that I think the story itself as a whole is fantastic, I at least got to wave the Third Doctor off in, a decent fashion. I still feel like his last run of episodes should have been a belter, though. In a way, it just wasn't. I mean, every Doctor deserves to go out with a blaze of glory, right? But at its worst, Season 11 gave me some of what I consider to be the worst of all Doctor Who. And yeah, okay, at its best, it gave me some of the very best. But not enough, and a lot of it was just the wrong side of average for me. So as the close to an era, I can't help but find that a bit underwhelming. So in that regard, I'm glad it's behind me. Now that has me feeling a little bit disrespectful, because it does also mean in this example that a Doctor is also now behind me, and I shouldn't really feel that when it comes to saying goodbye to a Doctor, but because of my feelings on Season 11, the relief that it's now behind me, I can't deny, while it does make me feel a little bit grubby, it's there. I have to stress that it's the ending of the season that has me feeling like that, not the ending of the Doctor. It's just that the two happen to coincide. Not that there isn't something to be taken away from Season 11, of course. Its opening story is glorious, with its writer seemingly at the height of his powers. However, as glorious as it is, we're 11 seasons in now, the top 10 is increasingly hard to get into, and the Time Warrior just hasn't managed to sneak in, which means that the top 10 at the end of Season 11 remains exactly as it did at the end of Season 10. Thus, number 10, The Mythmakers. Number 9, Marco Polo. Number 8, The Green Death. Number 7, The Sea Devils. Number 6, The Aztecs. Number 5, The Mind Robber. Number 4, The Time Meddler. At number 3, The Massacre. Number 2, The War Games. And still at number 1, Inferno. If only the rest of it had lived up to its opening story, then Season 11 wouldn't have been such a tough meal for me. As it is, I crunched the numbers again and ranked each season based on the ratings I'd given each story. And what do you know, Season 11 comes out at the bottom. So, a touch despondent at how the season was progressing, I did look for things that I liked in Season 11, and luckily one of them was at the forefront throughout. Now, she didn't quite manage to completely heal the wounds left by Jo leaving, or indeed save the season, but nevertheless Sarah was an incredibly welcome presence throughout. So, where does she sit in the top 10 companions at this point? If she even got in. Of course she got in, she's Sarah Jane Smith. Number 10, Ben Jackson. Ian's out, it finally happened. Yet Ben remains hanging on, probably the most different of all contemporary male companions the classic series had. Of Ben, Ian and Harry, I would say Ben would be the one who would fit easiest into the 21st century show, so his impact in the 60s is obviously keenly felt. Number 9, Victoria Waterfield. Still surprises me that she used to be so low in my rankings, to be honest. There is more to Victoria than I'd noticed before. A screamer, sure, but so much more than that. Focusing on that instead of her shrewd cunning in Tomb of the Cybermen and Abominable Snowmen is to do her a disservice. Number 8. Liz Shaw. Not given a fair crack of the whip and still sitting at number 8 out of 16. That's not bad going. And in no small part down to Caroline John herself, who seemed to put more work into creating Liz than her creators did. It's a real shame she never came back outside of a negligible cameo in The Five Doctors. Number 7. Stephen Taylor. As a marker of time moving on, Stephen is being bumped down gradually too. Number 7 gives me cause to consider this might be too low for Stephen. That's how much I like him. But it's only an indicator of how many great companions we actually have in Doctor Who, and Stephen is still one of the best. Number 6. Vicky Pallister. Same for Vicky, really. Adorable, smart, and never one to be truly sidelined in the way Susan was, thanks to Maureen O'Brien's sheer presence. Vicky transcends the stereotype of a role she was required to fill and emerge as an excellent character in her own right. Number 5. Jamie McCrimmon. Jamie's been bumped a bit by Sarah too, but I can't stress this enough. Ian now sits outside the top 10, and I think he's fantastic. So this is how strong the top 10 companions are at this point. Jamie is a defining character of 1960s Doctor Who, and stayed longer than some Doctors. He is extraordinary. Number 4. Sarah Jane Smith. And so, already in just 5 stories, is Sarah Jane Smith. Brought in to not only replace Jo Grant, but also seemingly to ring the changes slightly, Sarah made a very good first impression. She was charming and resourceful upon very first meeting, and then funny when she found herself in the Middle Ages. Given a rather unusual of late characteristic of resolutely not trusting the Doctor after hearing talk of a wizard from the stars acting malevolently, she proved even more capable than her predecessor did when we first met her, by formulating a daring and successful plan of taking him prisoner. She then comes round, of course, and over the course of 5 stories builds up a really winning chemistry with him. From larking about under martial law to bantering in the TARDIS on Exelon, trying to introduce feminism to the quaint civilization of Peladon, and witnessing what she thinks are his final moments. More than once. Her reaction to the Doctor dying is palpable, and she helps to sell that regeneration just as well as Pertwee does. All that said, it's still early days for her, and I am almost certain this won't be her final placing in the list. Number 3. Zoe Herriot. Still having a slight edge on Sarah, Zoe's slightly askance way of looking at things makes her ever so slightly more intriguing. I always come back to the moment in The Wheel in Space where her crewmates denigrate her for being emotionless, and the way Padbury plays that is sensational. She doesn't get it. It's such a great performance, which is often overlooked in favour of her arse on the spinning TARDIS console. Number 2. Barbara Wright. Still this high, 11 seasons in, is Barbara. Lovely Barbara. Now, will that ever change? Who knows? In a marathon which has seen plenty of my opinions shift, including Barbara being knocked off the top spot for the first time ever, so I don't take anything for granted. Anything can happen. Number 1. Jo Grant. If Jo jumped from number 10 to number 2 in one season, then this is why I have high hopes for Sarah. Jo's trajectory ended up being stratospheric, to the point where she's now at the very top, and Katie Manning left the show having made it a better show. Now that is an incredible feat for a companion. So, a rather damp ending overall for the Third Doctor, season-wise. Sure, his final 2 episodes were a welcome return to form, but it was, too little too late. 2 episodes isn't good enough after such a bumpy ride, and it really isn't how I wanted to say goodbye to him, especially as we haven't always seen eye to eye all the time. As ever, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this quick look back at Season 11, then you know how YouTube works. Please do hit the like thumb and share it around. I would be super grateful. And what are your thoughts on Season 11? Is it one of Pertwee's best? Did he go out on a high, or is it a mishmash of overreaching ambition and limited resources? Or are the stories so good that none of that matters to you? And what do our top 10s look like? Does yours look remotely like mine, or could we not be further apart? Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you back here soon for Pastures New and the longest serving Doctor on TV so far. Before we get there though, there's the customary brief look at the adventures of the Third Doctor in expanded media, the ranking of all the Third Doctor's TV stories, before an overview of the Third Doctor himself. So, if you don't want to miss that, hit the subscribe button, clang the cloister bell, and for a little while longer at least, the Third Doctor lives.